Center for Memory and Recording Research was established on the campus of UC San Diego in 1983 to advance the state-of-the-art in information storage technology and to produce highly trained graduate students and postdoctoral professionals for the data storage industry. Pursuing a dynamic, interdisciplinary program of cutting-edge research defined in cooperation with government agencies and industry partners, the Center's faculty, researchers, and students continue to push the frontiers of scientific knowledge and engineering technology to meet society's ever-increasing need for high-performance, reliable, and secure information storage systems. Formerly known as the Center for Magnetic Recording Research, CMRR changed its name in 2015 to reflect its expanding research into memory technologies. This year, 2018, marks 35 historic years for the Center for Memory and Recording Research. For the past 35 years, CMRR has been making groundbreaking developments and playing a part in changing the landscape of the information storage technology and systems industry. The Center has cultivated highly talented postdoctoral researchers and graduate students to become the next generation of leaders in the scientific world. CMRR has also served as a catalyst for joint investigations amongst its industrial sponsors, government agencies, and the university.
The center was established as an organized research unit that was intended to foster industry-university collaboration. And there was an initial group of several industrial sponsors who provided funding for the building as well as for the chaired faculty positions.
There was a motivation within the industry to get universities interested in their technology. So to put in perspective, when this building was formed, a hard drive weighed over 50 pounds and would store about 1 gigabyte of data. Would cost about $100,000. So it was about $100,000 per gigabyte at the time. So the world we live in now, where we have phones and digital communication, was not part of the world when this was formed. It was a completely different time in data storage.
While I worked at IBM, I had visited UCSD once in the mid-70s, and I thought it was an interesting university, very theoretical. There was research funding available, and the research funding was from industry. And so the center was initially almost exclusively supported and funded by membership from the industry. Art Anderson from IBM was one of the IBM drivers. With him was Jim Lemke, and Jim Lemke and Art Anderson were really the people who were the founders of CMRR. And so that was the approach used initially, which was different from most of the university research, which relied on federal government or federal agency for funding.
One of the things that Jack Wolf did when he first got to UCSD was to organize a workshop that would bring together academics who were experts in information theory and communication theory and coding theory, together with representatives of industrial R&D to share some ideas about what some of the big problems were that were facing advanced magnetic recording technology from the point of view of signal processing and coding.
After CMRR was established and formed, we had workshops and meetings here where people from industry would be coming, and we had sometimes 60 or 70 people. And the seminar went in the following way. We first had, in general, I think, Jack gave a one-day workshop on signal processing. Then in the second day, Neil gave a one-day workshop or class on magnetic recording theory, and on the third day I would give a one-day talk about tribology and mechanics of storage devices.
So the founding of the center, part of the money went for putting in the building and establishing this. And so it was originally built mostly by industrial funding, and 4 outside professors were hired to initiate research here.
The building itself is still really the heart of the activities that go on at the center. The core of the building has some very advanced laboratories with constantly, updated equipment, the latest state-of-the-art equipment. And the chaired faculty members have their offices here, as well as a number of the affiliated faculty members. And many of the graduate students and postdoctoral researchers and research scientists have their offices right here in the building. 1989 was a milestone year for magnetic recording, in that it was the first time that there was an experimental demonstration of recording at a gigabit per square inch, which is 1 billion bits per square inch on a magnetic disk surface. The experiment was conducted at IBM Research, which is where I was actually working at the time. But there was a lot of involvement from people at some of the centers that were devoted to magnetic recording, university centers.
Jack Wolf, he addressed the area of signal processing and various codes that would improve the recording density, and Neil Bertram worked on the signal, magnetic signal calculations. And so between Neil and Jack Wolf, and later on Ami Berkowitz and me, we had a very interdisciplinary situation where all the different disciplines would get together and would talk and would help make progress.
When this center was founded to today, the amount of data that you can store per inch has gone up about 1 million times. So a current hard drive can store 1 million times more data per inch than when this building was founded.
Yeah, so in 2001, a bust of Claude Shannon, who's the founder of information theory, was commissioned by the IEEE Information Theory Society. And so Jack Wolf, who was, as all information theorists are, a big fan of Claude Shannon, got wind of this and approached the family and asked if he could obtain the statue to be installed here at UCSD, in particular here at CMRR. He decided to organize a special event related to the installation of the statue. So there was a dedication ceremony and a symposium to go along with it. And he invited a number of the luminaries from the information theory field.
Shannon sets sort of a theoretical limit to how much signal to noise you need to be able to actually recover the data. And so he sort of really started this whole field of information theory, and that has sort of been the basis of the ability of the hard drive industry to recover information from sort of noisy data. It's also been the basis of how cell phones have done so well, transferring information over satellites. There's any number of areas where Shannon's work has been sort of fundamental. And
so the idea came really, in some sense, inspired by the workshops that Jack Wolf had done in the 1980s, to organize a workshop devoted to non-volatile memory technology, but not to limit it to just information theory and signal processing and coding, but to open it up and to really bring in people who represented, in some sense, a vertical slice through the storage stack. So people all the way from device technology up through the data encoding to the system architectures, computing system architectures, all the way up to applications. And so we decided to go for it.
And maybe one of the best examples of what we managed to do here at the CMR is this non-volatile memories workshop. So this is the one that we're going to have this year for the 9th time. So we started in 2010, and I think I was lucky enough to be part of that right from the beginning. So at the beginning I was the shuttle driver to drive people. Today I'm one of the co-organizers. So I think I feel like I grew up with the center and with the workshop, and for me it's like really the best example for have this transition for something like very small that I started as my PhD thesis as to I think today, which is one of the main focuses of the center. And I think the NVMW is really one of the highlights of this research that we're having every year.
We had a whole bunch of sponsors, magnetic recording companies, and they provide for some funding. And we made good use of those funding for education and research. And the students enjoyed working with industrial partners and sponsors, doing something more practical than just academic.
So part of the motivation from industry to funding the center was, as I said, to get students interested in this field, to get us to train students to work in this field and get interested in what they're doing. And so in that aspect, I think CMRR has been incredibly successful. There's been over 200 PhDs granted from people working in here, and many of them go to the different storage industries. And if you can go to any of the storage companies now, and there will be people in all levels that have come out of this center.
The companies in data storage, they're very aware of the program there, and Western Digital has just hired a lot of people that have come from CMRR, as have our competitors, and the training that we got there was immediately applicable to the problems in industry.
We had exceptionally warm staff. Betty, Iris, Ray, Jan. So I would say we were almost treated like kids of CMRR. It's an international institute in a way. There were lots of students like me from other countries, and thanks to the social environment that our professors basically created, we got along so well.
You can work with people who aren't just from one discipline. And in the building with the center, we've got people who are more along the tribology side of hard drive recording. We have people who work in encoding. We work with thin film magnetism and magnetic materials. We also have groups that are using some of the thin film technology to do battery technology. Really, it's sort of, because it's an engineering-focused application, you have people who do everything. And you get all those people in the same room together, and you get something really special.
So the center, when it was first formed, was the Center for Magnetic Recording Research. And this was primarily for magnetic recording, and that's data storage. So hard drives and tape were the primary things. But as the center was evolving, much of our work also went into memory.
Someone came up with the good idea of changing magnetic to memory, which was a good reflection of the increasing focus on non-volatile memories.
This is both the industry as well as the CMR is shifting from hard disk drive into solid state drives. And probably CMR is one of the best examples to accommodate and to fit into this new reality that we have to work more on solid state drive, because for the future the future is already here, and in many applications hard disks are already out, and you can see that solid state drives are much more common.
I think after 35 years, the center seems to still be going quite strong. There's no question that storage technologies are going to continue to be crucial in the information age. So I would expect that there'll be ongoing work related to existing and emerging storage technologies.
In terms of storing data, there's material science, there's mechanical engineering, there's information theory, computer science. When I worked in the hard drive industry, we hired people with backgrounds in physics, backgrounds in math, background in chemistry, backgrounds in engineering. It really is a truly interdisciplinary structure to make it work, a modern hard drive work and be able to store these massive amounts of data. And so the center, I think, is we try to reflect that. We have people working in all different areas that are associated with that, and so we try to reflect the interdisciplinary needs of the research, and that's one of the things that an organized research unit like CMRR is supposed to do. It's supposed to encourage interdisciplinary work, and we think we're very successful at doing that.